Welcome back to our first in a series of videos we are doing at the end of our project, the Co-Creating Sustainable Food Supply Chains project. I am here with the Swedish team. We're going to have a little chat about how their project went. We're in year 3, we're wrapping up. We did a series of interviews, which I'll link to in the show description, about what we were looking forward to at the outset of the project, and now we are wrapping up the project, having done some work over the course of the years, and just reflecting on what went well, and what we learned, basically. So I'll start by having Rebecca introduce herself and Courtney, and maybe talk a little bit about, for those who didn't catch the first video, who are we? What was the project about?
Hello, so I'm Rebecca. I'm a researcher currently at the Swedish Defense Research Agency and also affiliated to the Royal Institute of Technology at the Department for Sustainable Development, Environmental Science and Engineering, which was also my department previously when I was employed for 10 years. We work with the municipality and we work with other practice partners called the Eco District and that they are trying to form there. And the organization has been sort of a motor in this development called BERAS International to see how they do when they work with food-related issues in the municipality and on the regional level. And the reason we chose them is that they are forerunners in the Swedish context, working with food strategies, working with eco districts, working with food actors in the on the regional scale.
I am a PhD student at the Royal Institute of Technology at the same department that Rebecca mentioned just before, SEED for short, we're called. And I came into research from having been working in the agricultural sector in the region where we're doing the research since 2018. So that was my entry into this research, and have really enjoyed the practical focus of our overall project.
Yeah, great. So from the last interview, I went back and looked where Rebecca was interviewed before you joined the project, I think, Courtney. We talked a little bit about expectations for the project, how it was going to go. From the last interview, you mentioned that the municipality has a food provisioning strategy that they haven't yet implemented, that they were planning to implement. So could you talk a little bit about the food provisioning strategy?
So it's a system-oriented food strategy for the municipality where they incorporate sustainability issues and resilience issues, and they also try to reach over the whole municipal organization, well, like the operations with procurement and public kitchens on the one hand, the risk and preparedness security areas on the second hand, and on the third hand, land planning and spatial planning and physical planning and things related to like planning and strategies on the overall level. So they try to cover all these things in this strategy. And then they also rely on early strategies. They have, for example, a farming strategy that tries to, well, the aim of that strategy is to support and to encourage all types of food production in the municipality. They also have a diet policy, which then sort of on the overall arching level is also translated into this food supply strategy and other types of strategies or plans. And many of these plans are common to many other municipalities, but they all make their own. But others, like the farming strategy, is unique to Södertälje's municipality. They are not unique in making an overarching food strategy, but they are one of few municipalities in Sweden who have made their own, not only from the national level, but only from their level, what they think is important. And it was developed in 2022, and it was passed through the municipal council. It was supposed to start implementing after that, which has been. But the research we've been doing, partly also together with a master thesis student, trying to understand what type of implementation they've actually undertaken, it shows that it's been unevenly implemented. So people who are already involved in food-related issues and think about these things daily, they are much more ahead in implementation than maybe municipal civil servants who normally don't deal with food-related issues, but are asked to do this from the strategy point of view. So it's unevenly implemented, and it's a bunch of reasons why this has happened. So we have been trying to figure that out, and we are just soon publishing a paper on that topic.
Oh, great. And then I'll also ask Courtney to maybe talk a little bit about what your experience has been. Another quote from the original interview, Rebecca said, where one of the goals for the project broadly is strengthened value chains of organic and local food. And just hearing Rebecca describe this food strategy, which I've heard about over the course of the project, it seems very innovative, but also really ambitious. And I can imagine that part of what's going on is you have all these actors who might not have their head wrapped around the food system trying to work in that direction. So, talk us through what's happened over the course of the project and what strides have been made.
So I think it's important to Södertälje municipality is very much of a forerunner in how they are forming a lot of these policies, including the food supply strategy. And the focus of that strategy is very much like within the municipality and working across different areas of the municipality because they understand the importance of their position in things like land use planning and broader aspects that also affect food supply, that you can't just work on this specific supply chain, that it's also embedded in a broader context. But what I would also say is that things like public procurement are often put forward as kind of one of the solutions to our problems in terms of, well, we can have more local food supply if municipalities buy in more locally. But when you look at the practical side of things, so not looking at the policy, there's a whole range of challenges there that the municipality is working very closely with. So not only just having the policy documents and the frameworks and the municipal governance, but also working very practically with actors in the region. And both are integral to bringing about change. One doesn't really come without the other, and one doesn't work on itself. So I think that's what I would say in terms of what we've seen with strengthening value chains is really just the intensive way you have to work with different aspects of these chains at once and in parallel.
I also want to bring forward another quote from the last interview, which was asking about what would be the best possible outcome for our case study. And Rebecca said, I could wish for the best possible outcome would be that this eco district would have some sort of organizational effect that covers all parts of the value chain and that all actors are really coming to their full potential. So you might need intermediaries between farmers and consumers, for example, to help things to make leverage and increase sustainable production and consumption. So can you talk a little bit about, I guess maybe both pain points, meaning places where things could work better and there's been some struggle, and then maybe some places where there's been some successes in getting to that vision?
I can say something general, and then you can go into the details because this is just like, I would say, one of the core things we've been doing all these 3 years. Well, what Courtney's been doing all these 3 years. So as she said, like the public procurement is often brought forward as like, oh, you should just buy local, and then you get you check all these boxes. But then when you actually want to do it, there's a lot of barriers. So there are the prices aren't right. The prices that municipality that can be offered is not right in relation to the producers. The producers might not even exist because there's no production there locally. There might be other competitors, of course, and that has it's easier to buy from a large wholesaler than a small farm or a medium farm. So there's a lot of obstacles also on different time scales. So they've been able to find time and space to work with issues that another type of municipality might not have the ability to do. So they've been exploring solutions and questions together with food actors and potential intermediaries, for example, because as you said, it's one of the pointed at solutions. Maybe we need someone or something between the municipality as a customer and the multiple different producers to sort of connect and collect things to make it easier.
What we tend to talk about in research is kind of like this missing middle structure of these supply systems. That there's a lot of infrastructure that's missing. There's a lot of producers that's missing nowadays that have either ended or farms that have become specialized and bigger. And so we have certain types of production and we're missing others nowadays. So and that's kind of the idea behind the bio district or the eco district, is that how do we fill this middle structure in a way that's actually helpful for ongoing building up of these local systems again. Practically, I would describe the work of the bio-district as being, they've been taking a very broad view of what governing a food system should look like, including things like social inclusion, health, infrastructure, but also financing models, cooperative models, models for building knowledge. Sorry, I'm thinking in the wrong language. And also just how does this all fit together? Because we know we need this much broader view of how a food system should be governed. So that's where they've very much started. And also incorporating, we're in a certain landscape. What is this landscape capable of producing, and what types of food are perhaps local types of food? So I see it as a lot of practical energy around trying to reimagine what a local food system looks like. We know what they looked like in the past, and we had certain conditions then. We know, and now we need to kind of form this new vision, knowing what we know in the past, but also knowing the challenges that we face in the future around both geopolitical conditions, but also environmental and climate conditions. So I see that the bio-district is quite fundamental or instrumental in forming this vision by bringing together, so the board now that's formed from the bio-district, and you were saying what kind of wins have the practice partners had. I would say just the fact that the bio-district exists now, and it has a board filled with farmers, public representatives of public agencies, civil society actors, and that are coming together regularly and sharing their perspectives on what they think this middle part of the system needs to look like. So hopefully that work can continue. And Södertälje municipality is also involved there. So there's 21 municipalities in the region. So imagine a system where all 21 municipalities are interacting regularly with different types of food actors. I think that is a more promising future for the food system than if everyone's working separately as they are now.
That's great. So having done this project, thinking back on the time spent in all these meetings and all this action-oriented discussions, what surprised you the most, or what were you most pleased with seeing? Was there, if you can think of a few moments where there was a real sort of moment that it felt like a win, like you were moving in the right direction, and then, what were there any surprises that you didn't expect?
In general, I would say that it's amazing and interesting and exciting, or well, maybe not surprising, but it's nice that these actors who have very little, there's no one telling them they have to do this. They really have this inner drive to do it because they think it's the important and right thing to do, when they get all excited about it. So they could do something more that's easier for them. They can just do their jobs. This is my job, that's what I do. But they
Right.
do it beyond what they have to do, or they need to do. I mean, of course, producers who are involved have an idea of that this is that's maybe my future business model or whatever. But as a municipality, there's no one saying that this is the way you have to go. You can just go the easy way, get your wholesaler and get your stuff, and that's, period.
Right.
So I think that's I'm not surprised, because I think that was I knew beforehand, of course, that this was a very engaged bunch of people. But I think it's amazing that they don't let go, and that they, with very few resources and very little time and a lot of constraints legally or infrastructurally, whatever, they don't stop.
Yeah.
I,
They keep trying to do it even though it's swimming upstream. It's hard to do, but they continue. Yeah, that's great. Courtney, anything you want to add?
I just want to reiterate that, and probably just stress that it's it's from actors up at the top of municipal levels down to people working in kitchens trying to produce 500 or 1,000 meals a day. Even there, you see a real willingness to serve healthy food that people appreciate and enjoy local produce or regional produce. It's definitely driven by individuals that have a different vision for the future. So working all together, it seems a pretty positive scenario.
Yeah. And it sounds like things are moving in the right direction, but it just takes a sort of a long time to rebuild these networks, these relationships, these, ways in which people work together. Just quickly, Rebecca mentioned this, and maybe I think it's worth mentioning again, the role of the researcher and the researcher having a positive impact. This project's a little different than a lot of research projects where the researchers are supposed to have a sort of interventionist mindset, meaning they want to be helpful. They don't want to just extract data. You want to be there and be some sort of helpful resource to help catalyze these processes that people are already working toward. Maybe, Courtney, you could talk a little bit about what it's like being this sort of more active research orientation for this project and how it's gone.
Sure. I would say I feel like I've kind of come into research having that perspective from the beginning. So I may be a little bit the wrong person to ask. It's probably, but I would say definitely that it's a type of research filled with a very like very necessary work for what kind of the challenges we're facing, but also a lot of tensions between different types of institutions and actors and working out whose interests is what and what are we actually working towards. There's a lot to think about, but I think it's filled of very productive tensions, you could say. And maybe Rebecca can talk maybe a little bit more about having kind of a longer career in research, how she sees this research. I think it's very helpful. We're kind of moving now into another phase of research where we're continuing to work with the biodistrict in a different form and this very engaged thinking, both in terms of what research needs to be done, but what needs to be done in practice. I find a very helpful way to work. But maybe Rebecca has another view as well.
No, I just agree. I think the types of topics we are interested in doing research on are applied and they are sort of challenge oriented. It's not because we think it's interesting, but we also want to help, to help the world. We want to push the world in one direction and not the other direction. And it's not that our intervention in this case that has made the difference. But I think, at least when we ask our practice partners, just being able to mirror themselves in a person who can summarize or synthesize or just say, give back what they say to us and we give back to them what we hear. This is helpful. This is one way of intervening, like just, how to say?
Sort of framing their
Exactly.
work, right?
It's not doing the thinking for them, but it's sort of summarizing or it's through our eyes or through Courtney's eyes, it's trying to give back or feedback back what we hear and what we see, and that in as such helps to get on with the thinking,
Right.
and just observe and document or be in the same meeting even
Right.
without being not doing a lot, but it's still an influence and that we want to have in a positive way then, of
Yeah.
course.
And I mean, I've been thinking throughout this project as I've been observing and interviewing that researchers have a sort of power and they have lots of connections and they have a good way to analyze things. And so I think about using those tools as a force for good in these projects is really helpful rather than there have been forms of research, many different types of research in the past that seem sort of extractive. I mean, you're extracting knowledge, and knowledge ideally should serve society, but in this case, you're extracting knowledge and also, using your power, using your any kind of privilege or connections you have to help things advance. There's also a kind of value of being in the meetings like it's an important project. You have these researchers studying it, it's something important. So anyways, it's really great to hear about that. So Thinking about next steps, I know 3 years, one thing we talked about with Rebecca talked about in her initial interview, 3 years is such a short time, and it's so hard with these projects when you kind of start to get things off the ground and then the funding ends. So thinking about next steps, either for your research or sort of the food system transformation that you're working towards more broadly, where do you see possible next steps for continuing this work, transforming the food system towards something more sustainable, more local?
Yes. So there we'll be working with a concept around territorial agroecological living labs.
Mm.
If I can, another challenging title for a program.
Title. Who's coming up with these titles?
Yeah. So, but as I said, it's again with more closely with the biodistrict at the moment than perhaps where we've had a focus on the municipality in the past, but very much all same actors are involved again. And just how would you describe our work going forward? I think it's this kind of, it's from this realization or something that I've realized or seen the importance of is in research, we tend to look at like we study one supply chain or compare a couple of supply chains. What I've really seen in the project at the moment is the way that it's important to kind of consider policy actions, market actions, practical actions, governing actions, and all the projects that are working with them all at once in some way. So getting into the complexity more of what actually brings about change. And I think that's what we're going to be looking at more closely and working with the biodistrict. And like Rebecca was saying, I think working in research where you're reflecting what is happening in practice is really important sense-making project and process for everyone involved, because a lot of the time we don't know how the change is going to, like, there's unintended consequences, things happen, like we have different priorities shifting at the national level all the time. So there's not a lot of, it's very hard to see exactly what we're working towards, but we do it iteratively. And I think therefore research has an important role in these iterative sense-making processes. And that's what we hope to work intensively with going forward.
Anything I didn't cover in these questions that you feel like you've been thinking about this project that you want to report, that you're either excited about or something that looking back you would have done differently, or any kind of other insights that you want to share before we wrap up?
I think one thing is interesting. It is one specific project that Södertälje and their partners developed. It was the so-called potato game. It was sort of a workshop format with cards and scenarios and timescales that they developed for their purposes, so to speak. But it's been translated and also transferred to other contexts. For example, the practice partner in the German, one of the German cases. So I think that the practice partner connections outside research, I think that's really exciting. And that's just one example, I think. I think there are other links between Turkey and Germany and other things. So I think I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it's been fun to observe sort of the idea with these kinds of multinational projects is you have the specific case study where you're focusing on your specific area, but the idea is to sort of share insights and share strategies across, and it's been really enjoyable to observe that.
I just had the same thought. I guess what you guys are talking about here and just the appreciation I have for being able to work very locally, but having been exposed and having the chance to work with our partners in Thailand and Taiwan and Turkey, Germany. I think that has been an enjoyable process. And I've learned a lot from that as a PhD student. So just to reiterate again what Rebecca said. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to chat about this project. We'll not only do these set of interviews, but we're writing some policy papers and then a sort of final cross comparison case study I'll be helping to write up. So we'll look out for that on our project website. But thank you both for coming and talking about the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.